I've had 4 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder surgeries, problems with my elbows.
Blew out my ACL. I was beginning to look for alternatives because the pain was starting to get bad. I was to that point where I had to find something new.
This would have been surgery 6, total right hip replacement. Kind of on the fence, didn't know what to do, and then I started hearing about Kansas Regenerative Medicine.
The process itself was great. I went back to work the next Monday.
It's like I've been given a second lease on life.
My dad was a steel worker in Sterling, Illinois. My grandpa was a dairy farmer. You were either in the steel working business or a farmer. And I just remember in kindergarten, the teacher asked him, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And this guy wanted to be a firefighter, and this guy wanted to be a policeman. And I was the only guy that said, "I want to be a cowboy." When you're around cattle, you know, you're very prone to injuries. Any agriculture field, you're prone to injuries. I've had 4 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder surgeries, problems with my elbows. I got by, you know, take a few pain pills, just a little ice at night, and then I had another accident crawling out of a skid steer loader feeding cattle, and I went one way and my boot stayed in the skid steer, and so I broke my knee in a couple places and then had to have another surgery, and it was awful. On crutches the whole time, can't touch your toe to the ground. Had a grandson who I adored, and just wanted to spend more time with him, you know. My brother had worked with a veterinarian in California, one of the foremost stem cell clinics in the country, and I just really became intrigued by that. He told us of a couple doctors in Beverly Hills that had just started. Said, "You got his number?" "Yep." We called him, did a phone consultation, and off we went. Besides wanting to get healed, I had a golf trip scheduled to Bandon Dunes, Oregon, but we play 36 holes a day. You have to walk every step of it. I didn't want to miss that, so I didn't waste any time getting the stem cells I believed it could help. It was pretty amazing. We went in late August after my stem cell procedure in May. I didn't miss a beat, walked every hole. Now that made me a believer in stem cell therapy. When we saw the amazing results we had for ourselves, it was a way of fixing ourselves. We wanted to carry it on to our friends and family, and then one thing led to another, and it just got, you know, it just got bigger. When you're taking care of cattle, you can't take a day off, and so it's just allowed me to do that. I'll be in the cattle business all my life, no matter what I'm doing.
I had my first knee injury. I was probably 25. I blew out my ACL. Then you start having degeneration issues, cartilage problems. I was beginning to look for alternatives because the pain was starting to get bad. I was to that point where I had to find something new. It was funny. We were in Phoenix, Arizona on a golf trip and met a gentleman that had patented stem cell therapy in horses and dogs. I just asked him, would it help me? And he said, well, you know, here's what it did for me. I did my shoulder. And this guy was, I'd say, young 60s. And he had better range of motion in his shoulder than I did. And I was like, wow. My buddy John was there, and John had 4 knee surgeries. And the more John and I talked about it, the more we said, man, maybe this is an alternative. So we started doing all of our own research. We called a physician out of Beverly Hills, California to see if we could get a consultation and figure out if they thought it could help us. The process itself was great. Within 4 hours, I was in and out of the clinic and actually walking on the beach. Never had any negative side effects at all. It was just amazing. I went back to work the next Monday. It was crazy. I kept telling John, this is the best thing I've ever seen. That was when it kind of clicked for both of us. We knew that none of our friends and family would go to Beverly Hills, California and get stem cell therapy. That just didn't make sense to them. We both know a ton of farmers and ranchers that needed stem cell therapy so they could go to work every day. And we checked around, couldn't find anything close in the Midwest. So as we talked about it, we said, why wouldn't somebody start one here? And that kind of started the journey. At Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center, when a patient walks in the door, our service is second to none. I don't know how many patients have told me, Ken, the staff was amazing and the doctors truly care. They take time and they want to know what it is they're trying to help you with, but also, hey, your family.
Welcome to an introduction to regenerative medicine. We're going to be discussing how stem cells work and are they safe. The first thing to separate though is the difference between embryonic and adult. The media really doesn't do a good job of covering this. They spend time talking about the ethical dilemma, but they don't really talk about the safety issue. These cells have a purpose, and that's to form an organism. But what can happen is if you put them in your body, they can try to form an organism, and when they do, they make a tumor. It's a special type of tumor called a teratoma. This is a tumor that can have hair, teeth, nerves growing in it. The bottom line is they are very unpredictable and very unsafe. Adult stem cells are much different. There's no ethical dilemma. And they have completely different purposes. Their job is not to make a being because they're already formed. Their job is basically to repair and keep what you have. What that means is they don't form tumors, and their safety profile is unlike any other approved drug. All we do at Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center and our partners is adult stem cells. Imagine that's part of your body that's injured. This is not a paper cut. This is a significant injury. When the body has a significant injury, it looks for a quick fix. The body says, you know what, just throw a tarp on it. You get a tarp on there, it's not going to leak, but how long is that going to last? It's not the same thing. Well, we're not looking to just repair, we're looking to regenerate. We want to go back to the way it was originally. So how do we do that? There are stem cells in virtually every tissue of the body, but not a lot of stem cells. So in our joints, in our tendons, in our liver, in our hearts, there's not a lot of stem cells. So what happens is if you get a significant injury, again, this isn't a paper cut, this is a significant injury, we get a lot of inflammation. And this is a time where the body doesn't know when it has too much of a good thing. Because the body really tries to regenerate. But when you have too much inflammation, all of a sudden the balance isn't in our favor. The body says, you know what, we need the quick fix. The body's version of that tarp is fibrosis, the end point being a scar. We don't want scarring. So assuming you can't stop the injury, the first thing these cells can do is control inflammation. So what we're doing is we're taking stem cells from a tissue that's not going to be missed. In our case, we use fat. We put those stem cells into a tissue where they're needed. All of a sudden they control inflammation. And notice that I didn't say they just reduce inflammation, they actually control it. Not only do they control it, you notice there is still a pyramid there. We didn't get rid of inflammation. You need some inflammation. And that's where these cells are truly spectacular in that they know how to reduce inflammation without overdoing it, without immunosuppressing. This allows the body time to take a deep breath, count to 10, and go about regeneration. All of a sudden now, the balance is in our favor. In a perfect world, you'd have no fibrosis. Medicine is not perfect. So we're hopefully just going to have significantly less scarring. While differentiation is exciting, it's the tip of the iceberg. These cells can do a lot more. They can modify the immune system, and the term for that is immunomodulation. So they don't simply reduce inflammation, they can actually change immune cells. But they're smarter than that. They're smart enough to know how to reduce inflammation without immunocompromising. A lot of people, especially people with chronic joint pain, have probably heard of cortisone shots. Cortisone is a great anti-inflammatory, but it predisposes you to infections because it reduces your immune system. It immunocompromises you. Plus, cortisone actually slows wound healing. Stem cells do the opposite. They accelerate wound healing. That's not all stem cells do. They can actually increase your blood supply. It's called angiogenesis. They can move from one part of the body to the other. It's called homing. Stem cells can actually simply block pain. We talked about how their ability to reduce scar tissue. They can actually stop cells from committing suicide. And there's other things they can do as well. So you see, these cells have a variety of mechanisms in which they work. So there's not just one pathway. If it was just differentiation, one stem cell would turn into, say, one cartilage cell. We know these cells have much greater influence. So this is a better way to think of them. If these are the cells of the body, if one of the musicians was a stem cell, he's playing one instrument. Whereas if this person is the stem cell, he is influencing every person in that room. And that's what a stem cell does. They coordinate healing. They're conductors of healing. So where do we find these cells? Virtually every tissue of the body has them, but some tissues like these we don't want to be biopsied. Bone marrow has been known for decades for hematopoietic stem cells, but for these healing or mesenchymal stem cells, there's very few of them. Fat, first of all, nobody I have met would not donate fat, happens to be the richest source of stem cells, 2,000 times more cells than in bone marrow. Now there's a misnomer that people call them fat cells. These stem cells aren't in fat cells, they're in the fat tissue. So let's think of fat tissue as grapes on a vine, with the grapes being the fat cells. What we do after we remove the fat from your body is we basically pluck the grapes. We remove the fat. And what we're left behind is the vascular network. These are capillaries, the smallest blood vessels in your body that are throughout your fat. These capillaries are jam-packed with stem cells. And it turns out fat has more capillaries than any other tissue in the body. That's why fat has so many stem cells. This is a study that came out of Europe and the US. Private clinics treating patients with their own, it says autologous, that means their own adipose-derived stromal vascular fraction. That's another name for non-cultured or fresh cells. People all had osteoarthritis. Over 1,000 patients treated. Everybody had at least one joint injected. Some people had up to 4. If you were going to expect an adverse event, you would expect it to be within days to weeks. This study followed people a minimum of 1 year, some people over 4 years. What did they find? No serious side effects, systemic infection, or cancer associated with the cell therapy whatsoever. That was a private clinic, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. This is UCLA, one of the top medical centers in the world, looking at adipose-derived stromal cells. Stromal cells is another name for stem cell for pain management of arthritis in the human knee. And what did they find? Similarly, no infections, acute flares, or other adverse events. Autologous stromal vascular fraction was shown to be safe. This is not an FDA-approved treatment, but as part of the FDA-approved process, you go through phases of studies. And the first phase is a safety study. And there are published phase 1 studies for adipose-derived stem cells for arthritis. And between these studies that have been published, not a single adverse event has been reported. So the skeptics will say, nobody's proven these cells to be safe. I counter that. All of the available evidence show these cells are safe. There is no evidence that these cells are not safe. Here's a statement from the Mayo Clinic. Regenerative medicine is a game-changing area of medicine with the potential to fully heal damaged tissues and organs, offering solutions and hope for people who have conditions that today are beyond repair. All we do at Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center is stem cell therapy. We're treating a variety of conditions. Far and away, number 1 is arthritis, but there are other issues as well. If you have any questions, we offer free consults in person or on the phone. If in doubt, make the phone call.
Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Pelican. I've been practicing in Manhattan, Kansas for over 20 years. I'm double boarded in anesthesiology and pain management. I've had the great fortune of working for the last 2.5 years with Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. I've done over 350 spine stem cell deployments patients. We've had great success. Our average success is in the 85% range. You can go read on the internet all about the studies that show the efficacy and validity of stem cell treatments, but I like to talk about the human factor, something you can't get on the internet. I'd like to discuss a patient with you today who was a gentleman in his 40s who had a construction company that was successful. I had a spinal cord stimulator in him that gave him about 60% relief. He was on moderate dose narcotics, muscle relaxers, antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. He was even on high blood pressure medications. We then did stem cells on him. I saw him about 6 months later. He wrote me a note. One of my favorite notes that I've ever received from a patient is from that very gentleman. It said, "Thank you very much, doctor. I have no pain, not taking any medicine, my life is back. I'm going to all my kids' football, basketball, softball, volleyball games. They believe in me again. I'm preaching at church, and my wife and I ride our motorcycle. If I can provide relief like this to patients, I'll do stem cell treatments 24 hours a day, 7 days a week."
They're attracted to areas where cells are damaged or inflamed, and they lead the process of regeneration and repair. We found that farmers and ranchers like this process.
I was a little skeptical, but as we walked into the front door of the Kansas Regenerative Medical, the whole staff there made me feel very comfortable, and it was a really good experience all the way through, and took all my fears away.
You know, and I think we're on the cutting edge of what lies ahead, you know, in regards to helping with people who have injuries, whether it happens to be sports-related events or any other type. You know, I was present and helped with the official opening of the facility. I've been highly impressed with, you know, those people that, you know, have that vested interest in the center, and they, once again, trying to help others.
Without this place, without KRMC, I don't know where we'd be today. and you wouldn't believe the difference in his appearance. And he has sparkle in his eyes again.
I don't know why I started to research stem cells, but I did. And I visited with the doctors. They were excellent. I had my neck done, I had my shoulders done, I had a section of my back done, my hips, my sacrum, my sciatica, and my tailbone. But it wasn't really that painful. I was surprised at how easily it was done. It took me approximately 4 hours from the beginning to the end. Now I am having better range of motion in my arms and my neck and my back. So it's been very beneficial to me, and I want to thank Kansas Regenerative Medical Center.
Clyde Sutton, Ness City, Kansas. Went and had it done. As you can see, I saddled a horse. I'm still building fence. Love to shoot a shotgun rifle, and I'm able to participate, not like I used to, but nevertheless I can do the things I used to do. And I want to personally thank the doctors, nurses, staff at Kansas Regenerative Medicine for the opportunity they give me to have my life back again.
We were so impressed with how royally we were treated the first time we came to Kansas Regenerative.
We're taking the body's own ability to heal and repair itself, and we're just facilitating that. And we're helping the cells to do what they can do. We're just putting them where they need to be. And they get the signal, and for most of the patients, they're getting great results.
I was driving to work 4:30 in the morning, and I was driving 50 miles an hour northbound. The guy was driving 50 miles an hour westbound. He ran a light and T-boned me. And that would have just been the T-bone, but he pushed me into a signal pole. That pole basically hit my left shoulder and went 4 feet through the car and just twisted me up in there.
Obviously, it appears as if firefighters were able to remove the roof of that vehicle to get to that person inside.
Yeah, and even as we speak, they have removed the driver of this vehicle onto a backboard, I think onto a stretcher here. And again, we have not seen any medical assistance to that person at all.
And I came out of that thing with 15 bleeds in my brain, 4 of them like a grape, which is like strokes, you know, a crushed shoulder and neck complex. 3-4 weeks after the crash, and I'm still kind of getting my head back in shape. And the first guy I met was an off-duty police officer, and he just kind of came up and gave me a big hug, and he said, "Son, I gotta tell you, I was in the LAPD for 15 or 20 years. I was in the Kansas City PD for about that long as well, and I've seen more than most. And you are the luckiest man I've ever seen." You know, I was constantly in pain. Over a 9-year period, I had 5 surgeries on my neck and shoulders, and I managed to be as good a dad as I could be, spent time with my children and my wife, but nothing else. It was physical therapy, surgery, and pain. After about 8 years, my right hip, because of the way I was crushed, needs to be replaced. This would have been surgery 6, total right hip replacement at 39, and I'm thinking, like, I don't think I can take another one of these surgeries. I was kind of on the fence, didn't know what to do, and then I started hearing about Kansas Regenerative Medicine, and stem cells are so abstract that you look at it and you're like, okay. What really got me off the fence was it was time to schedule this hip replacement, and I was like, no. So I go to Kansas Regenerative Medicine, and I'm expecting maybe some orthopedic benefits. The treatment I got there was, you know, they take tissue out of your belt line, your waistline, might be on your back or here. And because of my spine needing so much, they took it from 3 spots. And so once they process these cells, it takes about an hour. You know, you're sitting in a comfortable room. They come back in, they put it in an IV. You know, they say 1 to 6 months is when things happen. And, you know, 1 to 3 months, I was like, oh, these shoulders are feeling good, right? But then month 3 to 7 for me is when I was like, holy cow. I can feel myself. And, you know, no wonder I've been in pain. I'm sitting crooked on my hip, and you turn your hip like this. After all this, I've got a passion to help the suffering, born from my own suffering. I've been given a gift that I didn't ask for, but it's something that when you go through the things I've gone through, it gives me the ability to communicate to people that are in a place I used to be and help them understand stem cells and how amazing they really are. It's like I've been given a second lease on life.